All right, so I'm doing a self-interview here, and for some reason my webcam isn't working, so I'm just using my phone here, kind of in the place a little bit higher than where the webcam would be. But I also have a thing, and I'll start recording this. So I created this little interview teleprompter, and the concept is that we will be able to identify questions that we might want to ask, like kind of, let's say it's a standard getting to know you type interview, or a standard what's your connection to Fort Hunt, or it could be a standard, what have you learned throughout the years, or it could be why did you choose the college you chose, or whatever. But just a series of questions. The same way, pretty much, if I was having you directly on either in person or telephone or webcam or like a webinar, these are the types of questions I would ask. Now, these are going to be stock questions, although certainly you could enhance the questions. You could say, all right, listen, here are 6 questions that are part of every interview, but I want people to ask me, how did I get so fantastic? Or, what do people not know about plumbing that they really need to know about, or whatever. So, the theory would be is that you're going to be able to enhance these questions and even add some gotcha, riveting follow-up questions if you want, I suppose. But so right now, I'm going to turn on the recorder on my little interview teleprompter just so you can see how that will work. And then I'm going to try to marry this up with the question. All right, so right now we're looking at it, and it says, I will read the first couple, and then we just won't, and I'll respond to them. The other thing to think about is, would it be helpful for this to be text to voice? So rather than you having to look at the question, you could, click to the next question, and it would just ask it of you. That way you can be focused on your camera or whatever. But we'll play around with these. This is part of how that process works. So it says, hi, and welcome to Fort Hunt Presents. Thanks for joining. And if I was doing a real interview here, I would say, well, thanks so much for having me. Great to be here. And so I'll just do one. The next one is, so can you tell us your name and occupation? I say, sure, my name's Fraser O'Leary. I guess my occupation is that I'm the chief inviter of the Fort Hunt Community Business Association. I have lots of titles. I'm also the founder, president, chancellor, intramural softball coach for Fort Hunt University. I run KidBiz, which is a youth entrepreneurship organization. I do marketing and business development for a variety of different companies. So that's it. Those are my titles. So you can see that, once you start answering, right, that's when the interview starts to take off. And so what I'll do here is do the next one. And then what I'll do, rather than asking it, I'll just answer it so we can see how that will work out. So I have lived in Fort Hunt since 2001. I grew up in D.C., Arlington area, and I went away for school, came back, and my wife and I met each other in 99 and got engaged, and then got married. And we moved here a month before we got married, and we moved into this little house on Jackson Road, and it was we drove through this. I used to drive up and down GW Parkway, and I like in that drive, and I never realized what a great community we have here. So we've lived here for almost 20 years. Some people have described this as Mayberry on the Potomac. I like that. It's a great, great community. And a couple of years ago, my wife opened up a piano studio over at Sherwood Crossing near Sherwood Gourmet and near Hughes Orthodontics, near the Sherwood Library, up on the way towards Route 1. And I checked in and saw, it said, are there any, is there a business association? Is there a merchants association? And there's a Chamber of Commerce, but there wasn't one for Fort Hunt. So we started it, and I've been connecting with businesses in the Fort Hunt area and trying to connect with schools and churches and civic associations and parks and all that stuff for a good amount of time. So what I do is just, basically I used to work with businesses and help them market. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I've had a lot of businesses fail, and all of them presumably failed because they didn't make enough sales. But that maintaining that focus, knowing what to do, knowing what not to do, being consistent, all of those things are real challenges. And so I've learned a lot, from my own experience, from other people. And so what I try to do is just help businesses avoid some mistakes. In many cases, those mistakes are doing nothing. And so I do that. I've done that for personal clients. I've done that with groups. I've done that as a retainer with sort of larger clients. So that's what I do. And when my wife opened up her business, I started focusing on her business. But I also connect with lots of cool businesses around here. So I try to help them out. I also work, as I mentioned, I think with a couple of other companies as personal clients right now. And anytime I can find things that use all of the different things, whether it's the networking or the website or whatever, that's a real positive. So I guess the question, how did I decide to get in the business? I mean, it's funny because we're talking about moving here. When I moved here in 2001, this was 2001, so this is about 4 years after the internet really started, getting going. The World Wide Web started getting going. I created a website called hollandhall.net, and it was meant to be a community site where kind of like have elements of Craigslist. There were actually quite a few sites like this, like neighborhood directories and forums, but this was just for Holland Hall, which is about 700, maybe 700 to 800 homes right now in the middle of Fort Hunt. And we set up personals, or we set up classifieds and directory and all this stuff. And Nextdoor right now is really popular and has a lot of those elements. But I've always been very interested in communities and connecting communities. And I've always been interested in entrepreneurship, and I've always been a teacher. So that's sort of how I got into it. I think over the past 20 years, I have, there's some times where I've been working for other companies. There have been times where I've been doing mortgage financing, lots of real estate related things. I've created an online academy to teach programming, web programming. So, I've done a lot, but I think community's been always very interesting, which is interesting sort of because I can be very, very social and very, very antisocial. So I think what I do, it's kind of like teaching for me, is I like my teaching the way I like my teaching, and I like my community the way I like my community. And usually that's exactly on my own terms. So I don't know what that means, but it's probably a character flaw. So what do I like most about living in Fort Hunt? You really do. I mean, I created this Fort Hunt University about a year ago, and hopefully we're going to really start blowing it out this year. But I was sort of reflecting on all the cool stuff that we have and how it is like a college campus. One of the first things I did, I was just talking about hollandhall.net. One of the first things that I wanted to do was this Holland Hall University, because I've always had in my head that we've got all this knowledge and talent and experience. And this was 20 years ago. So you could only imagine how much greater the repository of knowledge and talent is now. But I like to teach, and I think a lot of people like to share their knowledge and experience and stuff. And so the idea of harnessing that and having people share was always really powerful for me. But so, that concept of a college, university, where you get to experience lots of fun things. Man, we have great stuff. The libraries do a fantastic job. We got Mount Vernon down the road. We got MBCCT, ACCT, we got West Potomac, Mount Vernon. They do all their shows. Sandberg, you can do choral and band and sports and all this stuff. I mean, it's fantastic. And I don't take advantage of nearly enough of it. I mean, I'm probably doing more now than I did in the past 20 years. I like the parks. I like Fort Hunt Park. I like being near GW Parkway and the water is fantastic. I love being able to get down to the Beltway without having to be on Route 1. I mean, oh my God. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with Route 1 over the next, 10 years. I say it's interesting, and of course, Dan Stork and his team the Southeast Fairfax Development Corporation are doing all this project planning and what we're going to do and all this stuff, and I don't pay any attention to it. I'm like, it would be fascinating to know what's going to go on, and they say, here's what's going on, boring. So I'm going to get better about that too, maybe. But I think I like, just this. We've got this incredible richness of opportunity and experience. The pools, the parks, and then, like I was saying about being an extrovert and an introvert, is that I get to not necessarily have to do all of it. I can go home and my wife and I can binge watch something. Insider secret. I'm not going to tell you my big insider secret because I am shocked at how many people don't do anything with this. So I'm not going to tell you that one, but insider secret. I'm really torn. Boy, this is a tough question. I don't know that I want to give any of my insider secrets. I will just say that for a while they took away the self-checkout at the Safeway on Fort Hunt Road, and I am very delighted that they brought that back. I probably go in there every day to refill something. And it's just so nice to be able to do that. Another secret, I don't know. I like that question. We'll get rid of that question. Do I have any big projects for 2020? Yes, I do. So the biggest thing I would say is, there's a lot. I've got Fort Hunt University, which I'm very excited about growing. I have a target for us to get to 1,000 students by September of 2020. So that's pretty aggressive, I would think. We launched Marketing University, which is really just a course in program at Fort Hunt University. I have a couple cool projects that I'm working on with some clients. The other big thing is, this is something I launched. There's a lot of things I've launched last year that I'm kind of like, okay, we're going to really do it this year. But one is this concept of the Mount Vernon Student Congress. And I've done model UN or model legislative simulations, but this isn't really that. This is actually a concept of a representative Congress where we have representatives from each of the different, these are student representatives of each of the different neighborhoods. We're considering neighborhoods, the states in this version, and then the streets are actually the representative or legislative districts. And this is a concept of that rather than them, obviously legislating laws, which I'm not interested in having new ones necessarily. They are serving as kind of a voice for their street and a liaison with their street, but also they are going to have real influence over spending. The money that we raise through some of our projects is going to be earmarked for what we call community entrepreneurship projects, right? So this would be somebody wants to do a little free library, or somebody wants to put on a 3-on-3 basketball tournament, or somebody wants to create a park that we can do, somehow. So we'll have money, and the Congress will be making decisions about how to spend that money, how to give that money away, how to invest that money, how to do whatever. And so I'm very excited about that. I had intended to do that last year, and we had a great summer trip that derailed that. But my vision is that for 2020, and I'll probably do a video on that proper. Well, thank you for having me, and this is super fun that what you're doing. I'm looking forward to watching videos of other people and learning, meeting my neighbors and the community business leaders. Thanks.